My sister looked at me, with glee in her eyes. I'm inheriting Mom's house, and you're going to have to move out by next week. My boyfriend and I are moving in. My name is Deja Thompson, and I'm 33 years old. The day we buried my mother, the sky was a flat, unfeeling gray, the kind that doesn't bother with clouds, just a ceiling, low and close, as if the world had decided to hold its breath. I had picked the flowers, white lilies, because Mama said roses were for people who wanted to be noticed. I had written the obituary, coordinated with the funeral home, confirmed the repast catering, and made sure the program was printed on the good cardstock, not the thin kind that goes translucent in the light. I had spoken to the minister twice, once about the scripture readings, and once because he had spelled Mama's middle name wrong in his notes and needed to be corrected gently. Because that's what I do. I make sure things work. I had been doing it for 14 months straight, and the muscle memory of it was so deep by now that even on this day, even standing at this grave, some part of me was still running the checklist. Chandra stood 2 steps to my left at the graveside, wearing sunglasses I'd never seen before, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue like she was afraid of smearing something. She had dropped in from the east side of town the night before. She always showed up at the last possible moment. Holidays, the initial diagnosis, now this. She would appear in the doorway, and Mama would reach for her, and for 30 or 40 minutes the room would rearrange itself around Chandra's presence, the way a solar system would. Then Chandra would leave, and I would be there when the medication needed to be tracked, and the pain management specialist called, and the insurance company argued with us for the 3rd time that week. But when Chandra walked into a room, Mama's whole face would rearrange itself into something softer. My sister had that effect on her. I never quite did. I had learned to make peace with that a long time ago, or something that passed for peace. I was the intro to psychology professor. I understood attachment theory. I could name what I was feeling and trace it back to its probable origins and sit with it in a clinical kind of way. That didn't make it hurt less. It just made the hurting quieter. The minister finished his words. The crowd thinned. I stood there a little longer than everyone else, staring at the spray of lilies on the casket, thinking about the last morning I had made Mama tea and sat beside her while she slept, because the pain medication made her restless, and she didn't like to be alone when the sun was still low. No one had seen that morning but me. The repast was at the church fellowship hall. Somebody had made too much potato salad, which felt right. I moved through the room accepting condolences, refilling water glasses, making sure Mrs. Patterson got a chair because her hip had been bad since February. I talked to Mama's old co-workers from the county clerk's office, to her book club friends, to a woman I didn't recognize who said she had been in Mama's prayer circle and that she had been a light. She had been, I thought. She had been a particular and complicated kind of light. That's when Chandra touched my elbow. "We need to talk," she said. Her sunglasses were pushed up on her head now, and she had the careful expression of a person who had rehearsed something. "Not here," I said. "No," she agreed. "After." I nodded and went back to making sure things worked. The last guest left at 4:30. We were alone in Mama's house for the first time in years. Chandra perched on the edge of the floral armchair, me on the couch, both of us surrounded by casserole dishes in Tupperware and the particular silence that follows a day of performed grief. Before Chandra could speak, I thought about the 14 months. I did this quickly, the way you check a wound, and then I stopped. I thought about the afternoon Mama had sat in the oncologist's office and heard the word metastatic, and then looked at me because Chandra wasn't there, her hand in mine in the car afterward, both of us pretending to watch the road. I thought about the first round of chemotherapy, how small she had looked in the reclining chair, how she had wanted me to talk about anything except what was happening. So I had told her about my psychology students, the one who fell asleep every Tuesday and woke up to answer the question correctly, the one who turned in every assignment early and color-coded her notes, until Mama had smiled and said she wished she'd had a teacher like me, and something in my chest had cracked open quietly. I thought about the surgery in March, standing outside the operating room at 6 a.m, alone, because Chandra had said she would try to get there, but then didn't make it in time. I thought about the 2 a.m. calls to the on-call nurse, the medication spreadsheet I kept on my phone, the way I had learned to pronounce every drug name correctly so the pharmacist would take me seriously, my flexible schedule as an adjunct, intro to psychology on Tuesdays and Thursdays, social psychology on Monday mornings, had allowed me to build my life around her appointments, and I had done it without being asked, without being thanked, mostly without being noticed. She had still lit up when Chandra walked in. I had told myself it didn't matter. I had told myself she knew. Some days, I believed it. Chandra opened her purse. She pulled out a folded document and set it on the coffee table between us with the precision of someone who had thought very carefully about the angle. "Mama had a will," she said. I looked at the papers. "I know. We talked about it last spring." "Right." Chandra's fingers smoothed the edge of the document. "So, the house goes to me?" The sentence landed with a very quiet thud somewhere behind my sternum. Not a surprise, exactly, more like the confirmation of something I had been bracing for without admitting it. "She left you the piano," Chandra continued, her voice modulated to a frequency I recognized, gentle but sealed. The tone she used when she had made a decision and was informing you of it. She had been using that tone since she was 20. "And the jewelry, and those blue ceramics you always liked." The Wedgwood, cream white with the cornflower blue figures in relief, the pieces Mama had gotten from her own mother as a wedding gift. I had loved them since I was small. I used to stand in front of the display cabinet and press my nose to the glass and ask Mama what the little figures were doing, and she would say they were always dancing, they were always going somewhere. Jasperware, she called it, Wedgwood Jasperware. I had looked it up later, found the factory in Staffordshire, spent an embarrassing amount of time on their website one Sunday afternoon, imagining a trip. The piano I could not play. The jewelry was beautiful. The ceramics were the only things on the list that felt like she had known me when she wrote it. "The whole house?" I asked. "The deed is in her name, so it transfers cleanly. It's straightforward." Chandra opened the document toward me. Her name was there, clear as weather. It's what she wanted. I sat with that for a moment, thought about the 14 months, the oncology appointments, the insurance appeals, the Tuesday nights on the floor because Mama was afraid and wouldn't say so directly. I thought about how Mama's eyes still lit up when Chandra walked in, even near the end, even when she was exhausted from the treatment, even when I had been there every single day and Chandra had been only 45 minutes away. Chandra had always needed more. I had always been fine. That was the family story, and I had participated in telling it for so long that contesting it now, in this room, on this day, felt like a kind of violence I wasn't capable of. Some things you can't fight with paperwork. "Okay," I said. Chandra exhaled slowly, like she had been holding that breath since she booked her flight. "We can figure out a timeline for you to find a place," she said. "There's no rush. A month or 2. "Sure," I said. She looked at me for a moment longer than necessary, maybe waiting for the other shoe. I didn't throw it. I was too tired and too well trained, and somewhere underneath both of those things, I had already begun to feel the particular numbness that comes when you have absorbed a thing too large to process in real time. "You're always so reasonable," she said finally. She meant it as a compliment. She always did. I kept living in the house for the 3 weeks after the funeral, partly because I had nowhere else to go yet, and partly because someone needed to sort through everything Mama had left behind. Chandra had already started texting me photos from interior design accounts, asking how I felt about transitional style, as if I had feelings about that specifically, as if the house were already emptied of its previous life and ready to become something else, as if I were not still sleeping in the second bedroom and eating off the dishes Mama had bought 30 years ago. The decorators came on a Thursday, 2 of them with tablets and measuring tapes and the quietly confident manner of people who had been hired by someone who had already decided. They walked through the rooms making notes, pausing in the kitchen to discuss the cabinet situation, pausing in the living room to talk about the light. I sat in the back bedroom, the one Mama had used as a storage room and occasional craft space, and listened to their footsteps move through the house above me. the sound of strangers measuring what I had lived in. I had started sorting through the filing cabinet 2 days earlier. 14 months of medical documents, insurance explanations of benefits, prescription records, the particular archaeology of a serious illness. I filed them in orderly folders, labeled by date and provider in case anyone ever needed them. I didn't know who that would be. I did it anyway. Order was the thing I could still control. The bottom drawer was where Mama kept the older papers, things from before she got organized, or rather, before I moved in and organized things for her. Her natural state was a comfortable chaos, important documents loosely sorted into piles, bills tucked under decorative objects, receipts in a ceramic bowl by the front door. I had spent the first weeks of moving in quietly introducing order, and she had let me do it with a fond exasperation, the way she had always received the things I did for her. My father had been similar, piles and folders and boxes that meant something to him and no one else. When he died, suddenly, a cardiac event on a Tuesday morning, we had been so shattered by the speed of it that the administrative aftermath had taken years. Mama had never been the one to go through his papers. She had kept them in a kind of memorial stasis in the bottom of this drawer, maybe meaning to get to them, maybe not. The folder that changed everything was plain manila folder, unlabeled, tucked behind a stack of old tax returns and a rubber-banded bundle of Christmas cards. Inside it was 2 documents. I sat on the floor of the back room for a long time. The first document was a life insurance policy. My father's name across the top, the policy date going back 15 years, renewed in quiet increments, the kind of document a careful man sets up and maintains without mentioning it because he doesn't want to think about the world that would make it necessary. The policy amount was $400,000. The beneficiary designation was in a table at the back, clean and unambiguous, 75% to Deja Louise Thompson by name. To me, 25% to Chandra. The second document was a will, handwritten on 3 pages of Mama's good stationery, the cream paper with the small monogram at the top, witnessed by 2 signatures, Mrs. Elaine Carter from next door, and a name I recognized as the woman from the prayer circle who had spoken at the repast. Dated 10 months ago. 10 months ago, which was 4 months after I had moved in to care for her. In this will, in Mama's careful cursive, the house was to be divided equally between both daughters. I read it twice, then a third time, slowly, checking every line against the date. It superseded what Chandra had shown me. I stared at both documents for a very long time. Then I found the letter. It was paper-clipped to the inside cover of the insurance folder, folded in thirds, my name written on the outside in my father's handwriting. I recognized it before I even fully registered what I was seeing. My dearest Deja, if you're reading this, it probably means I'm long gone, and your mother didn't take the time to go through all my papers. I didn't tell anyone about this insurance because I didn't want anyone to knock me off before my time. I'm just joking about this. I laughed out loud, alone in that back room. That was so completely him. Anyway, I'm giving you the majority of money in this policy because I'm guessing your mother will probably leave most of the proceeds from the house to your sister. Don't be too angry at your mom. She knows Chandra needs more help than you, but I know that still isn't fair. You don't know this, but Chandra was very sick when she was born, and your mother latched onto her, kept her by her side day and night to make sure she lived. That's why she was so attached to your sister. It's still not fair, my love, what she did, but I thought I should explain. Please know, I love you. I love you with all my heart, and I know that your being sensible, hardworking, and independent is no reason not to get your fair share out of life. I hope this money helps you to travel to all the places you've always wanted to see. With all my love, your Pap-Pap. I pressed the letter flat against my chest. Outside, I could hear the decorators saying something about an accent wall. I sat there for a while longer, crying very quietly, feeling the particular grief of being seen by someone who was no longer there to see you. Then I wiped my face and took pictures of everything with my phone. Roger Haynes had an office on the 3rd floor of the Mercer building downtown, with a window that looked directly at a parking garage. He had been my colleague for 6 years. He taught business law in the department next to mine, and we had shared a refrigerator in the faculty lounge long enough to know each other well. He read both documents twice without speaking. Then he set them on his desk and looked at me. "The insurance policy is airtight," he said. "Your father designated you specifically by name, with a percentage. This isn't dependent on the will or the estate at all. This money comes directly to you." "And the will?" Roger picked it up again. "Witnessed by 2 people, both of whom signed and dated. Handwritten wills are valid in this state under specific conditions, and this one meets them. It's dated after the will your sister has." He set it down. "Deja, this supersedes what Chandra showed you. She's not going to like that." "No," he agreed. "She is not." I looked out at the parking garage. "I need you to be sure." "I'm sure." He leaned back. "Do you want me with you when you call her?" "No," I said. "I'll do it myself." Chandra arrived 20 minutes after I called her. Whatever I had expected, hesitation maybe, or a moment of stillness in which the information could settle, was not there. What I got instead was a woman walking through the front door of Mama's house with her jaw set and her keys still in her hand, wearing the expression she wore when she had decided something was wrong before she had finished hearing about it. She had been like this since childhood. Chandra's certainty preceded her evidence. It always had. She had been the homecoming queen, the cheerleader, the one who was simply right by virtue of being the one everyone was looking at. When she dropped out of college in her 3rd year, she had said the teachers didn't like her, and no one had questioned it, because why would the world not arrange itself around Chandra Thompson? She had worked her way up from the sales floor to department manager to regional manager at the department store, and I had genuinely respected that. Chandra was not stupid or lazy. She was capable of enormous effort when she chose to apply it. The problem was that she also believed, with deep and unexamined certainty, that the world owed her a particular arrangement of outcomes. "Where did you even find this?" she said, before she had fully crossed the threshold. "In the filing cabinet, in the back room." I had laid both documents on the coffee table along with my father's letter in clear plastic sleeves. The letter I had left folded, private. The 2 legal documents I had placed flat and open. "In the back room." She said it like the location itself was suspicious, as if documents found in a filing cabinet in a back room were somehow less valid than documents produced from a purse. "Why didn't Mama tell me?" she said. "I think she wrote the will after I moved in," I said, after she'd had some time to see how things were going. That landed. I watched it land. Chandra picked up the insurance document and stared at it. The calculation happened behind her eyes. I could see it, the rapid triage of what this meant for what she had planned, for what she had already told herself was hers. "There has to be a mistake," she said. "Roger has reviewed both. They're valid." "Roger." She put the policy down with more force than necessary. "You brought this to a lawyer before you even called me?" "I wanted to know what I was looking at." She crossed her arms. Her voice had taken on the particular quality it got when she was about to say something she had decided was decisive. "I'm going to contest it." "You can try," I said. My voice was level, calm. The voice I use in the classroom when a student is certain they are right and they are not. "But the will is dated after yours, and it's properly witnessed by 2 people whose signatures are on record. The insurance policy has nothing to do with the will. My father set it up independently and designated me by name. Those are 2 separate instruments." "This doesn't make sense." She was pacing now, small controlled movements. "We both know Mama would have told me about this. If she changed the will, she would have said something." I thought about the Tuesday nights on the floor, the surgery morning at 6, the way Mama had looked at me one afternoon in the oncology waiting room and said quietly that she didn't know what she would have done, and then changed the subject before I could respond to it. She had seen. She had just not known how to say it any other way than this. "She said it the way she knew how," I said. Chandra stared at me for a long moment. Then she picked up her keys and left. Chandra spent the next 3 weeks trying to find a lawyer willing to challenge both documents. She found one, briefly, a civil litigator who specialized in estate disputes and who had apparently heard enough of her version to believe there was a case. He requested a forensic document analysis of Mama's handwritten will. The analysis came back in 9 days. Mama's handwriting definitively matched against samples from her other correspondence, the paper stock and ink chemistry consistent with the date on the document, no sign of alteration. Then Chandra made the mistake. She produced what she said was an amended version of Mama's earlier will, the one she had shown me at the repast, now bearing a date 4 weeks after Mama's handwritten document. It arrived at Roger's office on a Tuesday, delivered by courier, with a cover letter from her lawyer outlining the grounds for contesting the later will. Roger called me that evening. He didn't bother with preamble. "The ink is wrong," he said. "The document's paper has the aging profile of something 2 years old. The ink has the chemistry of something written in the last month. She forged the date." I sat down on the edge of the bed. What happens now? Her lawyer withdrew this afternoon. When a client submits fraudulent documents in a probate proceeding, most attorneys find somewhere else to be. It's a liability issue, and more than that, it's a bar issue. A pause. "I don't think she's going to find another one willing to take this." I said nothing. "Deja," Roger's voice was careful, "you could press this further. What she did was—" "I know what it was," I said. "Okay. I just want it to be done." A longer pause. "I understand. I'll file the final response and request the court acknowledge the later will as controlling. Shouldn't take long." I looked out the window at the streetlight coming on in the early dark. "Thank you, Roger," I said, "for all of it." We sold the house in April. It was a clean sale, a young couple with a toddler and good energy who walked through every room making small pleased sounds and talked about which bedroom would become the nursery. I stood in the hallway watching them and felt something I hadn't expected. Not grief exactly, but a kind of completed feeling, like a sentence with its final punctuation. The proceeds were split evenly per Mama's handwritten will. My half arrived in my account on a Wednesday afternoon, and I sat looking at the number for a while, thinking about the 14 months, thinking about what it represented and what it didn't. Money was not the point. It had never been the point. The point was that she had seen. She had picked up a pen, and she had written my name in, and she had had it witnessed, and she had put it in a drawer where a careful person would eventually find it. She had known I would be the one to go through the papers. She had known that too. Combined with my father's $300,000, the total sat in my account like a breath finally let go. Roger helped me close on a house in October. 3 bedrooms, good light, a kitchen with actual counter space. I signed the papers on a Wednesday and sat in the empty living room for an hour afterward, just listening to the quiet. I had given notice at the college at the end of the spring semester. Not a resignation, a leave. 1 year. My department chair had looked at me with something between surprise and respect. "You've covered more than your share," she said, which was the closest anyone in that building had come to saying what was true. I booked the flight in November. The Wedgwood Factory and Visitor Center is in Barlaston in Staffordshire, about an hour south of Manchester on the train. I had wanted to go since I was 9 years old. Since the afternoon I had asked Mama what the blue and white pieces were, and she had told me they were jasperware, that they were very old, that her mother had brought them from another life, and that I was not to touch them. I had looked it up at the school library, this was before everyone had the internet in their pocket, and found photographs of the factory, the workshops, the process of pressing the white clay figures into the colored ground, and something about it had settled into me as a destination, a place I was going to go someday. A specific, real someday, not the vague kind. The someday had kept getting postponed. Graduate school, then the teaching position, then Mama's diagnosis, then the 14 months. Someday had a way of doing that. I touched the Wedgwood pieces now when I wanted to. They lived on the shelf in my new living room, the one with the good afternoon light. I had moved them carefully, wrapped them in cloth, and when I unwrapped them in the new house, I had set each one in place with the deliberate ceremony the occasion seemed to deserve. The morning I arrived at the factory in Barlaston, it was cold in that clean English way, bright and windswept, the fields along the road a saturated winter green. I walked through the museum slowly, more slowly than the other visitors, reading every placard. I watched a demonstration of the jasperware process, the relief figures applied by hand, and felt something I could only describe as recognition. This was the place those pieces in Mama's cabinet had come from, the long chain of hands and craft and time that had ended on a shelf in our living room. A staff member handed me a piece of unfinished jasperware to hold. The weight of it, the smooth density of the clay. I stood there holding it for longer than was probably normal. I thought about my father's letter. I hope this money helps you to travel to all the places you've always wanted to see. He had written that in some quiet hour, alone with his knowledge of who his daughters were and what the future would probably look like, and he had done what he could from across the distance of his own mortality. I stood in the factory courtyard for a long time, looking at the gray English sky, feeling the particular quality of arriving somewhere you have been meaning to go for 24 years. Then I went inside and bought too many things, which felt like exactly the right choice. A set of the classic jasperware mugs, a small decorative plate for my new kitchen, a piece almost identical to one of the ones that had lived in Mama's cabinet, because it seemed right to have one that was entirely mine. Over a year later, I got a text from a number I almost didn't recognize. Chandra. I heard you bought a house. Mom would have been happy about that. I read it twice. Set my phone down, made coffee, picked the phone up again. She would have, I typed back. I hope you're doing well, Chandra. A long pause. Then, I'm sorry about how things went. I looked out my kitchen window at the backyard, which I was slowly learning to use. The evenings had started to soften. Somewhere on a shelf 2 rooms over, the Wedgwood pieces caught the last of the afternoon light, their blue and white figures frozen in their permanent, graceful reach. I had no desire to go backward, no appetite for further argument or reopened wounds. What I felt, mostly, was the particular lightness of a person who has stopped carrying something they were never supposed to carry alone. I know, I wrote back. Take care of yourself. That was enough. That night, I made dinner in my kitchen. A real dinner. Mac and cheese with smothered pork chops from scratch, a thing I had not had time for in over a year. I poured a glass of wine and stood at the counter, eating standing up, which is the way I prefer it when no one's watching. I thought about my father, writing that letter in some quiet hour I would never be able to picture, tucking it into a plain manila folder, trusting that I would be the one to find it. I thought about my mother, picking up a pen months before she died and writing my name into a document because she had watched me and finally understood what she was seeing. I thought about Chandra on her homecoming float, waving, radiant, the whole crowd turning toward her. I had watched that from the bleachers and felt something small and crooked that I had never known how to name. I didn't feel it anymore. That was the thing about finally getting your fair share of something. It has a way of dissolving the oldest hungers. Outside, the streetlights came on one by one down the block. I finished my wine, washed the glass. Pap had been right. Being sensible and independent and the one who makes things work, none of that was a reason to get less than what you'd earned. He had known that before I did. I was grateful, finally, that someone had. Please like this story and subscribe to the channel.